Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, we've got Michael McCubs and Henry Hill. Henry Hill sporting a new haircut. Feeling fresh today, Henry?
Oh, don't. I was saying to you, basically, this is what happens when you ask your housemate to give you a light trim and then you have to kind of semi-abort it at the end. I actually don't mind this look, but I ended up looking like a bit of a Steve Jobs meets Gary Cahill knockoff, which I'm not sure is quite the look I was going for. But,
two icons.
Yeah, we'll have to go for now. But yeah, I'm not sure.
She's clearly got the shears out. McCubs, are you considering? Would you ever consider getting rid of all your hair? A la Dougie, a la Henry Hill.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe if it was for like charity or something, I don't know. But now I quite like my locks, and actually I've grown to quite like them being long again.
Nice.
It's a good excuse, I think, to grow your hair out long this lockdown, because I was kind of set on never having it long again, and it's happened again, and now I'm kind of a bit attached to it. So
I like it.
There'll be a bit of a dilemma. There'll be a bit of a dilemma once barbers are open again.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can, you should. I've lost that option in about 2017.
I've seen pictures though, Dukes, of you in your late teenagerhood.
Yeah, I was trying to rocking it,
them.
But
yeah, I love it.
Then became increasingly patchy. What were you going to say, Henry, quickly before we get onto the main topic?
This is the thing. I was close to fulfilling my dream of replicating my hero Andre Villas-Boas with my hairstyle, but now that's been like him. My career's now gone back to square one, so I'm gonna have to start again. So.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah, very much so. And we will be covering AVB later in the show. But for our main topic, we are going to be talking about the worst transfers of the January window. That's because Bazef99 said, who made the worst signing in January? Now, it was obviously quite a slow window until the latter stages, but there are actually quite a lot of movement in those latter stages. And we're going to talk about some good signings later on. But for now, we're going to kick off with the worst signings. And we're going to kick off, McCubs, with a player that left Arsenal in Mustafi.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think Arsenal fans can probably be pretty pleased with their January business, can't they? They managed to trim the squad. Kolasinac is out. Maitland-Niles is out, who I think actually probably a bit of a loss, to be honest, although he really wasn't getting enough game time under Arteta. Saliba, again, a situation that wasn't working out under Arteta either, and Willock as well. Released Özil, Socrates and Mustafi, and then brought in Matt Ryan and Erdegaard. So yeah, their squad is looking a lot more trim. I think that's broadly a good thing, considering that I think that was a bit of a problem that Arteta was facing, wasn't it? A lot of players not getting game time, getting a bit disgruntled, especially in that kind of November-December period where they weren't doing so well. That was kind of seen as something that was really putting Arteta under pressure. I think as for the young players, like I was saying, Willock and Maitland-Niles, I think you'd hopefully see, I don't know, Maitland-Niles perhaps come back or perhaps secure a better move than the one he secured to West Brom. I think he's better than West Brom. Willock as well, I think. I don't know, maybe Newcastle is probably more at his level actually. But getting Özil, Socrates and Mustafi off the wage bill is massive for them. That's £532,000 a week in wages, more or less, that they're getting off their wage bill there. Which has obviously been a big problem for the Gunners in recent years, in particular with Özil. But Mustafi was on a pretty good wage as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think about 90k.
Yeah, so they won't miss him in that regard, especially when he made 3 league appearances this season. Obviously played a little bit more in the Europa League, captained the club in their final Europa League game, which I guess is a fairly nice send-off for him in that sense. But in terms of actually what they're recouping from them in transfer fees, which is nothing. Not great business at all. Obviously, they spent £92 million on them in total. Over 40 million of that was spent on Özil. Nearly 40 million of that was spent on Mustafi. Let's remember in 2016. In 4.5 years, they really didn't get their money's worth with Mustafi. I think aside from that first 6-month period where I think they were unbeaten with him in the side, and then for a period under, I think, in Emery's first season where it looked like he was becoming a key player for them once again, and even actually in the early days of Arteta, I think we saw some improvements from Mustafi. He's never looked like the player that they brought in, really, who was a player who was brought in to really lead that defence and form a kind of inseparable bond with Koscielny at the time. He made 26 league appearances in each of his first 3 seasons, so I guess they got decent game time out of him in that sense. Like I said, in that first season under Emery, his stats looked pretty good. He was winning 80% of his challenges. He was winning most of his aerial duels. But then I guess, after that David Luiz signing, he kind of that destabilised his position a little bit. And then, bringing in players like Pablo Mari and especially Gabriel last summer, I think was really the nail in the coffin for his Arsenal career. And he's now left for free for Schalke, who are obviously in a very, very bad place. He's actually returning to Germany for the first time since 2009 when he was in the Hamburg Academy. Amazingly, he's never played minutes in the Bundesliga. So this is a first for him. But yeah, Schalke in such a bad place. 8 points in the Bundesliga. They're 9 points off safety with 15 games to go. And it's not like they've been unlucky either. Every game in which they've drawn or lost this season, I think they fared worse on XG. So at the back, they're not good enough. The midfield is not functional enough. The attack isn't firing at all. And this is in a squad which has decent players as well. Amina Harit, Suat Serdar, both very promising talents. Ozan Kabak, who's now gone to Liverpool, although he was pretty ill-disciplined this season, wasn't he? Missed something like 6 or 7 games at least through suspension. On the pitch it's not good enough. Behind the scenes it's not good enough. They've gone through. Well, they're already on their 3rd manager of the season, aren't they? Of course their finances are awful as well. So relegation could really be quite disastrous for them on a number of levels, and it looks like they're probably heading that way. But they have done quite a lot of business this January in their kind of desperate situation. A few loans, notably Kolasinac from Arsenal as well, and William from Wolfsburg. So hopefully they'll be sorting out their fullback positions with those signings. Obviously Kolasinac played for the club before and done very well there. Huntelaar has returned on a free, hasn't had any significant game time yet, but hopefully he can bring something. I don't know how a 38-year-old Huntelaar will do back in the Bundesliga, but he's performed miracles so far in his career, so we'll see. That back line really has been revamped. Is Mustafi gonna suddenly make them impenetrable? Probably not. But considering how they've been so far this season, Mustafi probably is in the short term a bit of an upgrade on Ozan Kabak. I think he doesn't have the natural attributes that Kabak does. He's not as aggressive. He's not had the career that hopefully Kabak will have, considering kind of what we've seen so far. He is a very promising player, but I think in terms of keeping a club up, or at least trying to put some sort of escape plan together, I think Mustafi probably isn't the worst shout for them as a short-term solution at the back. So I don't think it's a terrible signing by any means. I don't think Schalke have done necessarily terrible business in this transfer window, considering that they have no money and where they are in the table. But it is a sign of just how desperate the situation is there right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really difficult for them to stay out from there. I think the signing of Williams is really interesting. I remember mentioning him on Sunday Vibes like a year and a half ago, saying like this is a player that could go to the Premier League. He had a elite defensive output, wasn't so good on the ball, but he'll be an interesting signing.
Yeah. He hasn't really played this season. He's had kind of injury problems and stuff, so I think that's probably why Wolfsburg were happy to let him go. But
yeah, I think he got injured last year as well. He had such a difficult time with injury. But I don't actually mind Mustafi as a player, to be honest. I feel like his basics of his heading, his anticipation's not too bad. He's just not the best on the ball necessarily, and didn't really fit Arteta's style of play. And also does just have a mistake in him, a clanger in him, like once every 2 games. Sometimes more often. So it'll be key for him to eradicate that if Schalke are to stay up. But best of luck to Schalke. Huntelaar quite a good signing. They need to take some of the goals and weight off Hopper's shoulders, who's done exceptionally well since coming into the side, the young American. But it was going to be a really tough ask. But let's move on to our second player, Henry, in Sami Khedira, who has also returned to the Bundesliga this month.
Yes, Sami Khedira's stint as a free agent is over. The 33-year-old has been signed by Hertha Berlin on a deal till the end of the season. And you might think that someone who with Juventus won 5 league titles, 3 Coppa Italias in 5.5 years would probably, making 145 appearances. You'd think maybe there were lots of teams lining up for him. But we're just talking about injury issues there. And Sami Kadir has really been under the knife in the last few years. He's been really unlucky. If we just take a little look back at his career, in September 2018, he signed a new 4-year deal with Juventus, worth a reported £184,000 a week. So a serious investment, and by the old lady there. But then he made 9 appearances that season before he was diagnosed with an irregular heart condition in February. So that's really rotten luck. And he returned and then needed knee surgery. So all in all, he missed 29 games with multiple injuries across 18-19 and then 31 in 19-20 after requiring a second knee surgery. I was reading, I think he made like 18 appearances in 18-19, then 19 the season after, not all of those starts even. So he's really been a bit rusty, then hasn't played a single minute this season. But in credit to him, he revealed in December he was physically fit. He's clearly been working off-season, trying to get back in shape. And he signed for Hertha Berlin. And we all thought he might be coming to the Premier League. There was lots of talk about potentially linking up with Ancelotti, I think, at Everton. And Spurs may be interested. But I think maybe arriving at Hertha's the right level, considering everything that he's been through at the moment. It also helps that he's apparently friends with Arne Friedrich, who played with Khedira for the German national team, and he's complemented his leadership abilities. I mean, he's a quality player. I mean, looking at some of his statistics from his heydays at Juventus, averaging about 1.4 tackles per game. Obviously, Juventus is quite an attacking side, so he's not going to have to make loads of defensive actions per game there, but really competent player, and he wouldn't have got to where he was without that. And I mean, boy, could Hertha Berlin use him right now. I mean, back if big fans of Continental Club will remember, we included them in our kind of biggest disappointments of 2020, and I can tell you 2021 has not been any better for them. They have been truly shocking. I think they beat Schalke. Did they beat? Yes, they did beat Schalke. They got their one victory over Schalke, but then since then they've lost, I think, 4 of their other games in January. Bruno Labbadia has been fired as their coach, so he's gone out. And if you consider the kind of money they spent, a net of 99 million since the start of 1920, that's only 13 million less than Bayern in that same period. So they really were looking like they were going to kick on. And it's just not really worked out. They've only won 4 of their last 19 league games to date, and are now currently level on points with 16th place Armenia, who also beat them this month too. So it's really been disappointing. And I guess they've probably looked at the central midfield position as an area they can improve. The other player they bought in was Nemanja Radonjic from Marseille as well. We'll discuss that maybe a little bit later. So hopefully Khedira can come in and maybe try and command some presence in front of that back line. Because I was looking, they've conceded 10 goals in their last 3 games alone against Eintracht, Werder Bremen and Hoffenheim. So it's really, I think only scored twice in that time as well. And so they really do need to show up at the back, because XG rates them as the 12th best side. They're underperforming as far as they're concerned. They've conceded 8.9 more than XG predicts. And that's the largest gap in Europe's top 5 leagues. Wow. So it kind of shows you that the performances are roughly there, and they should be there. They've got a good team. Piontek, Mateus Cunha, we've revelled about him a few times. They've got some really good players in that side. They just simply can't put it together for love or money at the moment. But they've also been unlucky with injuries. We look at Dirk Boyata, a centre-back. He's missed 10 games, and their keeper, Alexander Shvolov, he's only got a save percentage of 61%. That's the 17th in the Bundesliga, which kind of shows you a little more indication of where their problems are at the moment. The Khedira contract, they've agreed to pay him, from our sources, which we've seen, roughly €2 million for the remainder of the season. Okay, that equates roughly to €130,000 per game, if true. I mean, and that's to just basically stabilise them in the Bundesliga. I still don't think Hertha are in genuine danger of being relegated, or at least having to go into that relegation playoff. And I do think his leadership could be useful. It's just up to him to get himself fit, and I mean, it's difficult to see. He's 33 years old, so I'm not sure where his career goes from here. At least maybe get another contract with a team like Hertha, who do have that potential to push on a little bit. So I think this is a good signing by Hertha Berlin. It's just up to Khedira to show that he's worth that kind of investment, because, as we said, these injury issues, they kind of have a bit of a snowball effect. Once they get going, it's harder and harder to lose your grip on them, and especially at his age too. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how this will go, but Hertha definitely need a player like Khedira right now.
Yeah, they 100% do. And as you say, it's good that he knows the sporting director, Friedrich, there. And they do seem like, at least on paper, too good to go down. I know it's a silly thing to say, but Guendouzi, Toussaint in midfield. Now they've got Khedira as well. There should be enough in that squad to stay up quite comfortably. But it's just been a category of disasters in the dugout as well. Jurgen Klinsmann came and went last year for a brief spell. Bruno Labbadia really underperformed considering his record in the Bundesliga. So things need to be sorted out at Hertha Berlin. They've definitely, as you say, been one of the disappointments of the year. The final transfer we want to talk about, we're not going to do it in as much detail because everyone knows the story of Mesut Özil and his end of time at Arsenal. Didn't play since March. He's now foregone £7 million if he'd stayed in North London to the end of his contract. Now at Fenerbahçe, obviously, he's going to be paid £3.5 million a year, so quite a drop down, which is just over £65,000 a week. So from 350 to 65, he's really taken a hit to play some football, but he is going to be given a hefty bonus. So he got a hefty signing on bonus of £4.5 million, which would be spread across 3 years for simply joining the club. And if they win the league title, he gets another £445,000 as well. They're currently 3 points clear of Galatasaray as well. So they've really incentivized his contract to try and get him performing as best as possible. That's not to say that he's motivated purely by money. I just mean, they've staggered his contract, staggered the sort of earnings he can make from his contract across a period of time. And it's just going to be difficult for Ozil. Like, he hasn't played football in so long. I think it's going to be challenging for him to get up to speed. He made his debut the other day. Didn't look fantastic, but it's obviously going to take some time. And he's clearly good enough to shine in the Turkish Super League. So I'm not overwhelmed by that deal for Fenerbahçe's point of view. But at the same time, if they end up winning that league title, it's probably worth it if Ozil can play some role in it. I've just realised it feels like we're hammering the Germany squad of 2014 in this episode so far. But yeah, some strange moves for that squad. Does go to show that was probably at their peak, most of those players. So it has been quite a while. But in terms of some positive signings, we also want to shed some light on some positive signings because the likes of Papu Gomez has obviously joined Sevilla. We've got Fikayo Tomori, who's gone on loan to AC Milan. William Saliba, who's returned to Nice to very good effect. Sebastian Haller has gone to Ajax, obviously, although he wasn't registered for their Europa League squad, which is an absolute nightmare I saw on Twitter last night.
Yeah.
I can't believe whoever made that administrative error. I think they're going to appeal it if it wasn't at Ajax's point of view. But if it was, they've just lost out on their key forward for the second part of the campaign in the Europa League. Terrible stuff. There's also Morgan Sanson, who's joined Aston Villa, and Moussa Dembele, who's obviously gone to Atletico Madrid. I mean, McCubs, of that list, is there anyone that sort of jumps out of you as one of the key signings from this January?
I think Tomori and Gomez, those are both very exciting signings, aren't they? I think Papu Gomez obviously has a point to prove at Sevilla. And Fikayo Tomori, I guess, has a bit of a point to prove as well. Although, I guess, the manager who snubbed him is no longer at Chelsea now. Maybe he would have preferred to have given himself a chance under Thomas Tuchel. But yeah, like Tomori's first signs at AC Milan look pretty promising, don't they? He completed 70 minutes against Inter, completed the full 90 against Bologna. Comes into a side which has kind of been hit by injury in key positions. I think he's going to be really, really a really, really interesting kind of player under I forget the manager now, Stefano Pioli, obviously.
I completely agree about Tomori. I watched that Inter game. He was brilliant. They're really positive signs from him. Just quickly, I think Joshua Zirkzee, I think his loan move to Parma could be really interesting. I think he got completely... I don't understand really the logic of bringing Choupo-Moting and demoting him after he showed so many promising signs. I saw Jean-Claire Todibo, he's joined Nice on loan as well, so him and Saliba can form a nice little partnership at the back there. And also, I'm not just saying this as like a joke or anything, but Monaco... No, I'm not joking. Monaco bought Crepin Diatta from Club Brugge for about 20 million euros. So one of the biggest moves of the whole window, and he went straight into their starting 11 at right wing, and it's the kind of position they actually do need. So that's going to be really exciting to see how he settles there. It's one of the moves that snuck under the radar. Monaco have got a really good player there. So actually, although it's not kind of blockbuster, some quite intriguing transfers did take place across the window.
Absolutely. I like that Crepin-Diatta move. I didn't actually know that had happened, so thanks for bringing that to my attention. What I'm kind of enjoying in this last couple of weeks is the fact that every Arsenal fan is now regularly watching Nice. Like, they are just such a nutty club that they're now just watching Nice to see how Saliba does. And, like, he's played really well so far. I think he's made 5 Ligue 1 appearances. He's averaging over 2 tackles and interceptions, winning 64% of his aerial duels. So it looks like he, obviously he played really well at Saint-Etienne last year. He joined Arsenal at the wrong time for him personally. He'd obviously just had a family bereavement as well. They tried to loan him out in the last few days of the window after changing tack. That didn't happen, so then he didn't play. So he really needs this regular game time. Still so young, still so promising. And we've just seen that Fofana, alongside him from Saint-Etienne last year, has just been one of the signings in the Premier League so far. So they're clearly a talented duo. And I hope Saliba, it works out for him in Nice. But guys, that is our first section done. What did you guys think? It was the worst signing of the January window. What did you think was the best? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match preview. For big match preview this week, we could have covered Real Betis versus Barcelona in La Liga or Juventus versus Roma. But instead, we had to go over to France because it's Le Classique this weekend between Marseille and PSG, 8 p.m. on Sunday night. Obviously been a dramatic week in French football, to say the least, Henry. Marseille, chaos.
Wow, I mean, we did ERU, which you should go check out, and we were just discussing this violent attack where 300 of their ultras launching flares into the training ground. We'll probably include a clip of that so you can see that. They set a tree on fire, players were forced to hide in their rooms. Apparently Alvaro Gonzalez, the centre-back, and Andre Villas-Boas went out to reason with the ultras, but Gonzalez was then hit with a projectile. And they were protesting against President Jacques-Henri Ayrault and owner Frank McCourt after some really rubbish, awful performances on the pitch and some questions about their kind of transfer policy and backroom operations. And we thought that was pretty bad. And then it got a bit crazier, didn't it, this week? Andre Villas-Boas, he'd already been kind of going close to the bone with his comments about the side. He admitted their results were awful. And he claimed he wouldn't be here when his contract expired in June. I think he used expletive words to describe their performances in the Champions League. And then, come the transfer deadline day, they signed Olivier Nchom from Celtic on loan. They've got a €4.5 million option to buy. Well, it turns out AVB didn't want this player at all. He said he was never on his list. And he was so angry about this. He said, I don't want any money. I just want to leave. He basically tendered his resignation in a press conference. Once again, you can see that clip. It's on Sky Sports. And I was just having a quick look at Nchom, and I'm not saying I'm not surprised, but he basically wanted a replacement for Morgan Sanson, who's one of their more creative players. Nchom isn't that. This season, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist. I think in his time at Celtic, he's never really been prolific when it comes to scoring and assisting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Scottish fans. But I can kind of see his point. However, I think to kind of go and tender his resignation is pretty extreme in that regard. Anyway, it was left to Frank McCourt to decide whether or not to sanction that, and he was not happy about this at all. Instead of just sort of heeding to Villas-Boas' request, he went one step further and just sacked him. He just he said his comments about kind of the way that business is done there was inappropriate, and they sacked him, which concludes, well, no, it doesn't quite conclude a really dramatic week, because then last night they were then playing Lens away from home, and I think there's a lot of questions about how they performed. Lens have been fairly solid all season. They were 2-0 up at half time, quite remarkably. Milik got his first goal for the club, but then they flustered that lead and finished 2-2. So, but yeah, I mean, really bizarre. If they'd won that, I'd have been really scratching my head this morning. But if we just look at like Marseille in general, they qualified for the Champions League for the first time since 13-14 at the end of last season. But only won 1 of their 6 games, scoring 2 goals, both of which came against Olympiacos. Only Istanbul Başakşehir, Red Bull Salzburg and Ferencváros conceded more than their 13 goals. They were the dismal in Europe. And their league form has also fallen apart as well. They were 4th on the 14th of December after losing 1 of their opening 14 games. So, I mean, fair play to Villas-Boas. It got them kind of in the right direction. But since then, played 9, won 1, drawn 3, lost 5, scored 10, conceded 14. And they're now 12 points off 4th place Monaco, forgive me, albeit with 2 games in hand, although I just cannot see them closing the gap on that. I must say, the top 4 in Liga is looking really interesting right now. All of them kind of in the run I've never seen a more exciting kind of league and race in recent memory. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Marseille is they were pretty dull to watch. I sat through them a couple of times this year. I think against Lille, we've discussed this league a little bit, and they're just a really turgid team. Not really much creativity. It often was just lump it up to Benedetto and kind of see what happens. But that's not going to be happening anymore. I mean, the stats kind of confirm that. Only Dijon take fewer shots than their 9.7 per game. That's fewer than Newcastle United, and they also concede 11.1 shots per game. The ninth best, which kind of shows you that's their main concern, really. And that's just been reflecting the results, and the Marseille fanatics are just not happy about it. And what happens now at the club? Apparently, Maurizio Sarri has been contacted about taking over, but he isn't interested in taking over mid-season, has rejected their approach. I'm not surprised about that at all. Thauvin and Jordan Amavi, their contracts are expiring this summer. Highly unlikely they're going to stick around. And there's also other loan players like Michael Cuisance, Paul Larola from Fiorentina, and then Leonardo Balerdi from Dortmund. Who knows what's going to happen to these players too? AVB basically said they needed a reset. Maybe that will happen. But if I mean, anything could happen in this game against PSG. But I'm firmly expecting PSG to roll them over. So I think that's
it would certainly look like that as well. I mean, it's just bizarre, these scenes. I think it's one of the most sort of dramatic weeks in French football history, to be honest. And I mean, look at what happened to Sporting CP when they had that thing, and now they're top of the Liga NOS. So the turnaround can happen, but it's going to take a lot of work. They're going to have to get this next managerial appointment right. They're probably going to have to, calm down these ultras who very much have this idea that they run the club because, players come and go, owners come and go, but the French ultras, the ultras in any club are there forever. And they've got a sense of ownership. I can understand their frustrations, but at the same time, inexcusable actions as a result of those. But McCubs, let's move on to PSG because they too have had quite a weird year.
Yeah, it has been an odd season for PSG, hasn't it? Especially in domestic competition where it's usually completely plain sailing. They're now very much in a title race with two other clubs, at least. Lille and Lyon don't look like they're going to be dropping out of that anytime soon, and PSG are dropping points, aren't they? Obviously, have changed manager halfway through the season as well, which is actually pretty unusual for them. And Pochettino has had an okay start, but not a flawless start. He's already dropped points in 2 games of his 5 league games. One of those coming on the weekend against Lorient, in a game in which they were 2-1 up, although they were 1-0 down initially as well. So yeah, real topsy-turvy game that was on Sunday. Real entertaining watch. And obviously it was a game that they really should have won. Lorient are 18th in the table. PSG completely dominated the ball, as you'd expect. But they only mustered 14 shots with 3 on target. Lorient actually outshot them and put more of their shots on target. Despite XG kind of saying that, despite XG kind of suggesting that PSG were unfortunate to lose, I think they mustered something at 2.6 XG compared to Lorient's 1.6. I think if you take away the penalties, both of which they were their only source of goals in the game, I think Lorient would have outdone them. It certainly looked like that on the night. Ultimately they came undone with some incredibly naive defending in the final moments, where they threw almost everyone forward, and Mustafi was just allowed to run through. Was basically in an offside position, but was in his own half. So that was as bad as it. I think that's probably some of the worst defending I've seen since that Man United Başakşehir game.
I thought you were going to mention that.
Yeah. My only reference point, the club I support, obviously. So really, really poor from them. Defensively poor all game, to be honest. Kimpembe at fault for the first goal as well. They brought it back on the weekend, defeating bottom-placed Nîmes 3-0, in a game which I think they were also actually quite unconvincing in. I just feel like in the last 2 games, I've not really seen them create many clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities from open play. And I think for a side which has the quality that it has and has been managed by Tuchel for the last 2 years and now has Pochettino in the dugout, is a little bit concerning. Equally, there's a sense that they will probably turn this around in the next week or two. They're just too good not to. But slightly worrying times. They're now in third. They're 3 points behind Lille, a point behind Lyon. They've lost 5 of their 23 league games. The last time they lost more in a single completed season was 2010-11 when they lost 8 and finished third. I believe 2010-11 was also the last time they lost to Lorient. So who knows, maybe that's a bad omen as well. In terms of what specifically is going wrong, I think just across the board, they're just a little bit worse this year than they were last year. Their attack is still very productive, all in all. 2.5 XG per game is excellent. That's actually down from 2.8 last time, though. Their defence has taken a bit of a dip as well. They're now conceding over an expected goal per game compared to 0.8 last year. So yeah, and I think you could attribute a lot of that to their difficulties at the start of the season and the injuries they've had. Obviously, they've had the very inexperienced Mitchell Bakker starting every game at left back since Juan Bernat's injury, although I think he's done pretty well. But I think not having a rotation option there has probably hurt them a little bit. Lyon have, by all accounts, looked the better team overall this season. So yeah, I think it is quite worrying, and I guess a result of them having not really upgraded their team much in the last 2 years. They've only spent £40 million, in fact, over the last 2 seasons, and all of that was on Mauro Icardi, wasn't it? Or at least over the last 18 months, at least. Obviously, it didn't upgrade any positions in the summer, really. Florenzi's played a decent amount, hasn't he? And has looked all right, but yeah, no big upgrades to that team. I guess the good news is obviously that Neymar signed that 4-year deal this week. So that will give the club hope that maybe Mbappe will follow suit. Obviously doesn't guarantee that he will, but I think it's definitely better, puts them in a better negotiating position with him than had Neymar not signed. So yeah, as for this game, I think, it would be a real disaster if PSG were to lose it. And I can't see after the week that Marseille have had them really hurting them. So yeah, I'm probably going to go for a comfortable PSG victory.
Oh, Henry, are you in agreement there? Do you think, what's the score going to be?
Yeah, I think PSG are going to be fired up, certainly after the last league encounter with that dramatic kind of red card festival at the end. I'm going to go 3-1 or 3-0 to PSG.
Nice. Neymar should be fresh as well. He obviously missed that game against Nîmes on Wednesday with a suspension. In terms of their injuries, both are not too bad. Jordan Marvey is the only player missing for Marseille. Juan Bernat, long-term injury with that ACL, is the only one out for PSG. And actually, PSG should win this, at least according to the history books as well. They've only lost one of their last 22 meetings in all competitions, dating back to November 2011 with 18 wins in that time. But they did lose the game before this one, 1-0 at the Parc des Princes. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I can't really predict anything other than a PSG victory in this one. I think it will be a comfortable 2-0 victory. But guys, get your score predictions for it in the comments down below. And what have you made of the Marseille debacle, the chaotic scenes across this week, and who should replace Andre Villas-Boas? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to our quickfire question. Our quickfire question comes in from that man Swagato. What a legend. It's Swagato is back, and he says, do you think Barcelona can beat PSG? I mean, Henry, Barcelona have been pretty good recently. Do you think they'll beat the Parisians?
Oof, yeah. I mean, I think they're kind of building momentum. The Copa del Rey, they had a crazy quarter-final on Wednesday night against Granada. I think they were 2-0 down with about 5 minutes to go. Ended up dragging it into extra time and won 5-3 on extra time. So really kind of crazy game there. And I think they're building momentum. I think Griezmann looks really good. I think I want to say PSG are favourites, but I just think PSG's defence has been so blighted of injury, and they've got players who aren't really at that kind of elite level at the moment in their defence. So there are going to be opportunities to score for Barcelona with the forwards they have. So yeah, I do think that Barcelona could do. I think they're just going to have to play a bit of a professional game and so not all out attack, just really stick to their defensive duties and be quite rigid, and then be quite clever in how they do go forward. I don't think they can kind of go all out against PSG and expect to win. They're going to have to be a bit more kind of restrained in that regard. But yeah, sure, why not?
McCubs, sorry, are you in agreement? Are you backing your Catalan bros?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely can do it. Yeah, I'd agree. I think PSG are favourites. I mean, they've not had the greatest season, but they have clearly the better manager in the dugout. A manager who's certainly a lot more experienced at navigating two-legged ties in the Champions League. However, Barcelona have Messi. I feel like every year when there's like doubts over Barcelona, it's always the same thing. We're like, oh well, yeah, Barcelona don't look great at the moment, but they do have Messi. And obviously, yeah, like Tenny was saying, Griezmann's in the form of his Barcelona career at the moment, isn't he? The whole team seems to be kind of pulling in the right direction at the moment. And Messi is back on top form as well. I think he was kind of the saviour against Granada, wasn't he? So yeah, yes. and to add further kind of I guess motivation to the Argentinian, you know, if this is his final campaign at Barcelona, then he wants to go out on a high, doesn't he? And what greater high than leading a fairly dysfunctional side to Champions League glory. I think they can, certainly do the PSG defence damage. You know, I think the Barcelona defence themselves have not looked overly convincing at all this season as well, been hit by injury a lot, haven't they? So, I think it will be like high scoring. And I think Barcelona can certainly do it. But I think I'd still say that PSG edge the kind of favourites meter at the moment.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I think it's just going to be an awesome two-legged tie, to be honest. Both sides are quite flawed, defensively at least. Barcelona mainly in terms of personnel. They've obviously missed Serginho Dest, Sergi Roberto for the last couple of weeks. Araujo and Mingueza have had to play a lot of games. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Personally, I think PSG will still edge it. I think Neymar has just really turned up in the Champions League over the last 18 months, 12 months at least. So it's going to be an absolutely fascinating tie. But who do you guys think is going to win that? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you want more stuff about Barcelona, we did a How to Fix It on the podcast this week between me and Pat. So go and enjoy that. And McCubs, there is a very special video dropping tomorrow morning on EFD, isn't there?
Oh, what? Sorry. I thought you were talking about like a Barcelona, but I was like, have we done another one on Barcelona?
No, only the bloody final.
It's the final, the final of the football pyramid between myself and Christopher Hamill, a rerun of the 2018 Stat Wars final, a rerun of the 2019 Stat Wars the League final. I'm not sure if we've shared any other finals. I feel like we might have, to be honest. Two Titans going at it. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned for tomorrow morning.
Hammer and tongs they do. And I can tell you, spoiler alert, it's very close. So go and check it out tomorrow. Can't wait for that to drop at 10 a.m. Henry, is there anything you'd like to push to before we wrap up?
Well, we've got a 10 out, 10 players carrying bad signs. A nice positive little video for you to go check out. So have a look at that. There's also, we did something recently, why Barcelona and Real Madrid are in financial nightmare. Suss that out if you want to see maybe a bit more of a kind of detailed look at how this COVID pandemic is causing absolute chaos with finances at some of the biggest giants across Europe.
Absolutely. Go check that out. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.